Hi everyone, and welcome to mini lecture 7. Today we'll be discussing how to create a title. Before we begin, take a moment to pull up a Word document as we will be doing some writing with this lecture assignment. The purpose and goals for today's lecture are as follows. First, we'll discuss the role of titles in writing. Then we'll explore the considerations for a strong title, and we'll conclude by examining methods for composing a strong title. To kick us off, let's unpack the question, what is a title? So it seems like such a simple, basic question, but when we are tasked to write one, it's always important to consider, okay, well, what is it that I'm writing? What is it that I am being asked to create? And when we think about a title, be it a title for a movie, a book, an article, an album, whatever the case may be, there is a consistent theme there of what kind of function a title performs. And essentially, a title is going to be a brief text indicating the topic and focus, in this case, of the writing. But you can think about it, this applies to anything that has a title. I mean, you think about movies with thinking about it this way, Avengers Infinity War came out. So you have Avengers, that's our topic. That is what, the movie is going to talk about. So you're not about to see a Justice League movie or a Teen Titans movie or anything along those lines. You're about to see an Avengers movie. And then the focus, Infinity War, is also included in there. So we know which chapter or which part of the Avengers narrative we are going to learn more about or to watch more on. So a title then provides the reader with an understanding of your framework, approach, and argument, and this is going to be especially important in academic writing. As you gather research, be it for this class or for others, you will probably find that your decision to even read or consider an article to include as evidence or as a way to inform your own ideas, your decision to even read that may be greatly informed by what you read in the title. Maybe you read the title and say, oh, it seems interesting, but not really in the same vein of what I'm doing, I'm going to pass. And so if it's a poor title, then maybe that work aligns perfectly with what you're doing. But if you can't tell that by the title, then you're more inclined to move on to something else. But if it's a really good title, then you can more quickly and efficiently determine that work might be appropriate for what you're doing. Now, when composing a title, you'll often notice it has a lot of keywords or buzzwords in it that's relevant to your writing, and this is both in the title and the subtitle, and we'll look at those differentiations here in just a minute. But I think most importantly, what a title should do and the function of a title is to pique the reader's interest in your writing, is to get the reader to stop and say, hey, this is something that I am going to spend 10, 15, 30 minutes, an hour really reading and delving into. And again, the title can help people, help your readers stop and gain interest in what it is you're writing on. Now let's talk about what makes a good title, because remember, if you compose a bad title or a title that is irrelevant to the rest of your work or doesn't really pique the reader's interest, then your reader might move on and they might not engage with your work, even if it aligns with what they're already doing. And so let's talk about, again, what makes a good title? What is going to make your readers stop and want to read your work? I always recommend, and this is becoming par for the course in academic writing regardless of the discipline, but to start off with some kind of catchy phrase or hook, if you will. So, red sand in my shoes, gazing at the heavens, a tale of two parties. So something that indicates or hints at what the paper is going to be about, but still has that sort of creative quality to it, to make it sound less technical. And by doing that, you can make your writing seem far more approachable and accessible to a wide variety of readers, rather than just catching the attention of maybe those who are already experts in the field. You can engage those who are maybe just starting to learn about a topic. Now, so that's going to be essentially your title, but then you want to oftentimes follow it up with a subtitle. So when you start off with a catchy phrase or hook, that can again be great for piquing the reader's interest. But if we look at something like Red Sand in My Shoes, Gazing at the Heavens, A Tale of Two Parties, while those are catchy and good, and kind of punny at some points, they don't really tell us necessarily what the topic is, what the argument will be, or what the methodological framework is going to be for the piece. And so it's important, again, especially in academic writing, that you follow up with some kind of subtitle. And that usually comes after a colon. So if we look at it here, we've got the subtitle that includes an informative phrase, including methodology, argument, and or additional details. This is really going to solidify what topic you're looking at and the way in which you explore that topic. So extending off of the examples, the catchy phrases and hooks that we've already looked at, and we added a more descriptive subtitle to it, we could read Red Sand in My Shoes, Predicting the Rate of Oxidization in Snow Canyon State Park. So you can see how there's kind of a connection between the catchy phrase and the informative subtitle that follows it. So everyone knows, if you live in southern Utah, you've probably had red sand in your shoes before. Well, if the entire paper is on looking at that oxidization, so how that rock becomes red, you can see how there is a logical connection between the two. One is just a more creative way of saying it, and then the other is a bit more of an informative way. We could also look at Gazing at the Heavens, Tracing Mythologies and Histories of Astronomical Exploration. So again, we have something a bit more kind of catchy, creative, really kind of get the reader's attention. But then we follow up to say, okay, you liked that catchy, creative title. Now here's specifically what I'm going to be looking at in this work. And same with our last example, A Tale of Two Parties, a comparative cluster criticism of the 2016 RNC and DNC keynotes. So, I know already out the gate, okay, A Tale of Two Parties. Maybe from that I can say, okay, this is going to be something about American politics, but if I were to just say something about American politics, there's a lot that we could discuss. And so we have that informative subtitle following that colon that tells us, okay, yes, I am looking at two different parties here, but more specifically, I am doing a comparative cluster criticism looking at the 2016 RNC and DNC keynotes. So whenever we're creating a title, I always say it's good to have some kind of catchy phrase or hook to really get the reader's attention, and then immediately following up with some kind of informative phrase that includes the methodology, argument, and or additional details to really let the reader know what they can expect to read in your work. When you are creating a title, there are a few considerations that you'll want to be aware of and trying to adapt to your own writing style. So what I would recommend, don't come up with the title first. Let the title be one of the last things that you do, because, you might find that you have this really great title, but, toward the beginning, even before you write the first official draft, but as you start to develop ideas, as you start to receive feedback, you might notice that your work takes a completely different direction, and that title that you created and that you developed might not be relevant or as applicable as it once was. So what I would recommend, write your first draft, and then create a tentative title of some point. And then as you do that, you want to think critically about your intended audience. So who are you looking to engage in your content? And think about what's going to catch their eye, what's going to make them stop and more thoughtfully consider reading your piece, and what is going to, if you will, sell them on reading your piece. And then as you go through, after you've completed your first draft, after you have an understanding of who your audience is and what will gain their attention enough to where they will express interest in reading your work, then you'll want to go through and reread your draft and identify important keywords or phrases to include, especially in that subtitle. So if we were to go through looking at these previous examples, let's say I go through the first one where I talk about predicting the rate of oxidization in Snow Canyon State Park. You know, if I know that I'm writing for a local audience, let's say those who are interested in geology in the southwestern United States, and I'm going through and I'll say, okay, well, I know oxidization is going to be an important key term to include, but also because my readers are going to be familiar with, you know, the regional names of the locations, it'll be ideal for me to include Snow Canyon State Park in there as well. So the same thing with, let's look at the last example. If I'm going through my, my first draft and I say, okay, you know, I really do repeat the phrase 2016 RNC and DNC keynotes. If I go through and let's say I find a lot of time, I take a lot of time to really explain what those means, then they probably have some kind of place in my title because it's an idea that I come back to quite a bit, or it's a key artifact that I'm analyzing in this written work. So write your draft first. Think about who you want to engage with your writing and really what's going to hook them into saying, all right, I'm going to stop and take the time to read this. And so once you've determined those, you know, those considerations after reading writing your first draft, go through and reread and keep a critical eye out for those keywords that you think will be important for your intended audience to really get a good sense of what the rest of your work will be about, and thinking about how you can incorporate those into your title, be it into the kind of catchy creative title itself or the more technical subtitle that you include. Okay, so for the lecture assignment, what I would like you to do is review your draft materials for the current project, whatever that might be. Based on what you've written, I'd like you to compose a brief write-up detailing the following. I'd like you to include a sketch of your intended audience. So tell me, you know, are these going to be people who are experts in a specific field, people who happen to be interested in a certain topic, even if it's not super academic-y? So who are your audience members? And who do you see most realistically wanting to engage with the writing that you compose? I'd also like you to include keywords and or key phrases important to include in your title. So after reviewing your materials, what keywords and phrases stick out to you as being important and or as a way to hook or engage your members of your intended audience based off of the sketch that you have created? And then what I'd like you to do is draft a tentative title, also including a subtitle in there as well. So something catchy, something to really get the reader interested, and then of course having a colon with, and then following with that more technical information to really contextualize what you're writing about. All right, everyone, so that concludes today's mini lecture. If you have any questions or if there are any concepts that I can speak to further, please don't hesitate to contact me. All right, everyone. Until next time.